Thank you for welcoming me onto your screens, onto your headphones, depending on how you're watching this. I'm Eddie, and this is The Rollback. Folks, I'm going to talk to you today about Godzilla Minus One, aka a great fucking movie.
Godzilla Minus One.
So, cards on the table. I'm a little biased here. I am a massive Godzilla fan. I have a massive Godzilla poster literally right there. I have a Godzilla statue right there. These little monitos over here are little Godzillas. So I understand there's some bias here. But I also understand that there is bias when I say the following. Godzilla Minus One is a legitimate contender for Film of the Year because they've done something that very few Godzilla films have been able to do. Even Shin Godzilla struggled at this thing. Making you emotionally invested in the human aspect of the story. Because in Godzilla Minus One, it does so many things right. I guess I'll start with the obvious. Godzilla himself, he's been scaled down a lot, which is nice. One thing that a lot of people don't really consider is the fact that if Godzilla is massive, if he's 100 stories tall, that's cool. But you lose scope of scale, especially if you're not from a big city. Myself, I'm from a relatively small town. Our biggest tower is I think 13 stories. But again, I lose the ability to really comprehend their size when they're so godlike, when they're massive. There's something equal, if not more terrifying, when you see the monster and they're not 100 stories tall. They're only 50 feet, maybe 75 feet tall. There's something scary about that. And the first time we see Godzilla in this film, he's very much, I don't want to say an adolescent, but he's nowhere near fully grown. This Godzilla is maybe 40, 50 feet tall at most, stomping around on the beachfront with soldiers with gunfire that actually, I don't want to say hurts him, but bothers him enough that he gives them his attention, killing a group of soldiers. And in that group of soldiers, we find our heart of the story. I apologize if I'm mispronouncing this. Mr. Shichimi, former kamikaze pilot who couldn't go through with it. He feigned a issue with his plane, ended up landing in an airstrip. Turns out, plane was fine, he just didn't want to perform a kamikaze attack and die for a country that was already losing a war, which, you know what, fair enough, I'm not going to judge. But anyway, in this attack, everyone's killed except for two people. An air mechanic and the pilot. They both go their separate ways. The mechanic giving the pilot pictures of all the good soldiers that died because of his inaction when he was ordered to go to a gunner ship and shoot Godzilla. The pilot froze because of his fear, which is, again, understandable in the face of a giant monster that's eating everything. Again, this Godzilla is terrifying. Shin Godzilla is terrifying in a different way. This feels a little more pliable, whereas Shin Godzilla is terror because terror exists on a national scale versus on the more localized scale. It's crazy because this Godzilla feels like it's not attacking the planet, it's attacking a village, and then a town, and then a city. It hits differently, if that makes sense. Fast forward, the kamikaze pilot is back home in burned down Tokyo. He ends up befriending / taking in a young woman by the name of Noriko Oishi. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. And a baby that she adopted that was orphaned in the fire, in the flames, Akikyo. So they kind of have this weird partnership. They're not romantically linked. They just live together to raise this child. The child calls him dad and he says, "I'm not your father," which is cold as fuck. But here's the thing. The pilot isn't just saying that because he wants to be mean. He's still fighting his own war. He's still dealing with his own stuff. The fact being that Godzilla still exists out there and he has a lot of survivor's guilt, not just from the war itself, but also from the fact that his friends died and all the other mechanics died. He puts that on himself. And finally, once he begins to have some therapeutic, moving forward, he gets a job destroying mines in the area. He makes friends with the doc, the kid, the sailor. Everything's going right until Godzilla attacks again. Him having some very, very, very severe PTSD. The attacks are coming. He begins to warn, "This is what I saw." I believe the doc or the kid or the sailor, I don't remember which one, even says on Oda Island, which is a nice homage by the way, and says that they thought, it was an overrun by the Americans. No, it was a cover-up. It was actually a giant monster. Godzilla, who has grown in stature, and that's when the battle really begins. He attacks, I want to say, Ginza, if I'm not mistaken, that district. leveling it in a great homage slash montage to the original Godzilla attacking. There's a great scene in the original and a great story, behind the scenes story. Back in the 1950s when the original Godzilla took place, Godzilla attacked a theater that actually existed in real life. It was, I think, 1-to-1 model scale to Godzilla. And when he destroyed it, the people that were in that theater that happened to be watching Godzilla the film freaked out, because for a moment, some people freaked out because they thought Godzilla was actually outside. Awesome film. Anyway, that said, Godzilla Minus One just hits different. It hits a lot of emotional scales. You're invested in this partnership, in this relationship, and just when the pilot thinks that, you know what, he can let go and he can have a real relationship, Godzilla comes back and takes away the one woman he loves. He asks the spirits of the men that died, can I find peace? Can I find love? Can I find happiness? And almost like a force of nature answering a sinner, no, you may not. To which he decides, then I'm going to dedicate my life to killing this son of a bitch. The locals end up coming up with a plan, a brilliant plan, a scientific plan, because normally you just attack Godzilla with conventional arms and try to kill him, but Godzilla regenerates. It's made very apparent early on when they blow up a mine in his mouth. This Godzilla regenerates. So how can we attack him from a different way? They come up with not one but two genius plans. One is to sink him all the way 1,500 meters down. The quick decompression should kill him, the pressure. If that doesn't work, Plan B opens up a bunch of buoys that picks him all the way back up, and the bends, or I guess the explosive decompression, should kill him. Either the compression or decompression should theoretically kill this Godzilla. Both fail. With his kamikaze pilot finding an actual experimental plane from, late in the war, he's able to find the same mechanic from Oda Island and tells him, my war isn't over yet. I need you to fix this plane so I can take on Godzilla and beat him. To which he does. The pilot is able to draw Godzilla out and into the water, and that's when we get a rendition of, the old school Godzilla, the dun 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 da da da, the music. So a lot of people associate that as Godzilla's theme song, when in the original, no, it wasn't. In the original, that song was actually meant to be the call to arms of the Japanese army taking on Godzilla. It was meant to be a battle cry for them against him, and they used that same music in this one, and I loved it. I loved when the warships began to attack Godzilla, we hear that music. I had literal goosebumps up my spine when that happened. That said, the plan goes awry, Godzilla still stands. Even the explosive decompression could not kill him. So when he rises to the surface, you think, oh, this is the moment that the pilot dies. Because the whole time they were playing it as if his partner had passed away. But at the very last minute, in a very brilliant stroke of genius, he hit the ejection button. He managed to get out right when he landed the bomb in Godzilla's mouth, killing him. His repulse beam exploding within him, destroying him from the inside out, except for one piece. And there's something like this movie, it does so much. It's not an exact remake of the original, but it does a lot of the remakeness. But a lot of where it's invested is also in the human characters, making you like these people, care about these people, wanting them to succeed. I never found myself cheering on Godzilla. I found myself cheering on the humans, which is very difficult to do. But I found it in this. This Godzilla, also being one of the rarest times that they use full CGI, looks incredible. It is a certain taste of CGI. It doesn't look Hollywood quality, but nonetheless, it looks fantastic somehow. There's a great balance. This film was only $15 million to do, and yet we have $200 million films from Marvel that look like shit. That should put them to shame. This movie just impeccable all the way through. I won't spoil the end of what happens to the human characters, but in all, great film. A film I genuinely recommend, not just to Godzilla fans, not just to Kaiju fans or Attack on Titan fans, but fans of film in general. This is an amazing film in general. Godzilla is not the main character. He's a force of nature and an obstacle to be overcome, rather than, I guess, an antagonist, if that makes sense. A+, 10 out of 10, 5-star, whatever. It's an amazing film. Is it perfect? I don't know, maybe to me it is. I did watch it with subtitles, but I watched it in an IMAX theater with a lot of people that were all enjoying themselves, so much so that I bought a single ticket early on when all the seats were still available. When I got there, people on my left, people on my right. That's how packed it was for this film. I recommend that you go watch it, go support it. It's made, I think, $20 million in the box office here in the US, which against a $15 million budget is solid. It's made 35 mil so far, and it's hopefully going to crack at least 70. I hope it beats Shin Godzilla. This movie does deserve to be nominated. Definitely in Japan, hopefully here in the US, but we'll just have to see. But yeah, this movie, there's a podcast that's going to come out for this film. Hopefully, probably the first podcast of 2024. I can't wait for that episode. It's going to be great. But that said, what did you think of Godzilla Minus One, and why did you love it? Go ahead and comment down below. I'd greatly appreciate it, and we'll catch you all next time. We'll see everybody.